It's time! Mid-season. Our rankings. Is this the best stream of the season? Or is it playoffs? I don't know. It might be this, because this is before dreams get crushed. Trox has subbed for 65 months. How are you doing, Trox? Thank you. Stabeve Lacto. And Casper has dropped the prime for 4 as well. Stabeve. Thank you, Casper. What's up? Casper, of course, coach of the Rotterdam Rotoms. We have a fun time ahead of us. There are a large... in fact, there is a record-breaking number of rookies in the Smiles Go for Miles circuit this season. So I do imagine we may have a fair few viewers, perhaps like Casper, who are unfamiliar with how the mid-season power rankings work. Now, of course, the whole process has probably been relatively well explained, but it's best that we go over and make things clear. So things currently are as standing yada yada in the Smiles Conference and the Mars Conference. These are standings you are familiar with. We are 9 weeks into the 17 weeks of league play. But these standings, well, these standings are probably going to change quite a lot. And the question is who can predict and be as accurate as possible with their power rankings. For instance, last season, these are the standings from last season in the Mars Conference. You'll notice, the Litten got in. It was topped by the Mimikyu, Bonsly second, and the Hoopa and the Altaria are down here. But at mid-season, this is what the standings look like. The Litten were outside playoffs. The Hoopa were up in 5th. The Altarias were in playoffs as well, and the Gallade were actually top of the conference. Things change a lot, you know. And in the Smiles Conference, the Appletuns ended up coming top 3. So one thing is safe to say, and that is that the standings will almost certainly not look anything like these come the end of the season. And that's why we asked you, the players, to rank where you think teams are going to finish. But of course, we have a bit of cross-conference ranking as well, just for a little bit of spice to see how those conferences shake up. Because we all know that it's the Smiles Conference against the Mars Conference, and the Mars Conference is like NA in Rocket League, where they do the most talking, they also do the most losing, and then they take people from other conferences. Then they do well and they claim them as their own. That's basically how the Mars Conference works, and we're going to see how people rank Smiles against Miles. So in the production and collecting and entering of this data, I've noticed a lot of patterns. There's a lot of similarities actually to last season in some respects, and there's a lot of rather large differences in some cases. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I gather a lot of you are probably quite familiar. The best stream is one where I win everything and become supreme leader of the world. My mon difference is almost the same this season with 5-4 rather than 8-1. Mon difference is a funny thing, I guess. So the pages will look like this. Obviously, we've got 36 teams to rank for the first time ever. Very exciting. Of course, last season at this point, we only had 34. So whilst the assets have been adaptable for me, things have changed a little bit. And your page will, of course, show your team, your color, your logo. Current record, how good things are looking statistically. I'm just talking objectively. The stats can't lie. Your current record may be positive or negative. That's fine, etc. This is very interesting, though. This is the thing that most people may not be as familiar with, and that's your schedule difficulty. This is showing how difficult your schedule has been so far. So the harder so far, then in theory the better. But it's a little bit malleable in the sense that it simply judges who you've played in the conference based off their position right now. But they may only be in that position because they've played easy teams, etc. So it's not definitive. But it's definitely a decent vague idea. If you have statistically the hardest schedule remaining, things are probably going to be tough. And vice versa. But certainly in the middle, things get very wishy-washy because, like I say, teams may only be super low down because they've had a lot of tough games. Some teams will perform better than others, and therefore you want to try and play teams at the right time. Maybe there's transfers that make them better post mid-season. Maybe you think they've made transfers that made their draft worse, and that's probably the case for some teams, to be honest. But it's a very real and not fake statistic. In fact, it's very interesting. You'll also have your kill leader, featured Mon. Some people are trading away their kill leader, so that's kind of strange. And it'll say if their nickname as well, if I can fit it in, which a lot of cases I can't, and how many kills you've got with it. In instances where two of your Mons got the same number of kills, I just went for the one that had less deaths. You know, the coach, of course, may not have always been with said franchise, but we can see how many seasons they've played in Smiles Go for Miles. The average power ranking, that is the average placement considering all people that ranked your team, excluding the maximum and minimum value, which is where the highest and lowest come into things. Now, you can see outside of the brackets, the highest anyone ranked you, and the lowest anyone ranked you, but the maximum minimum values were taken out. I can say that there were 27 power rankings received of the 36 teams, albeit 2 of the rankings contributed are from coaches not in a conference. That's myself and Cheerio. So the average is of 25 because the highest and lowest ranking you receive are taken out in order to manipulate and remove any strange placements. Someone where people have got a take that's too hot, they've burnt the kitchen, or ones where people have just put themselves 36th, which is something that some people did. So yeah. Also any transfers you've made, etc. During this mid-season. We didn't do pre-season predictions, which is a little bit of a shame. Honestly, I'm kind of sad we didn't. So I had to replace this with where I put your draft. Again, that's only where I put it, having very limited knowledge of Gen 9, which has perhaps improved since watching this season. And I figured it might be cool as a reminder. And where you currently are in the conference, albeit that is up here as well. Your schedule of all the teams you've got left to play. You probably won't have any of these teams to play. And then talking about your best showing as a coach / franchise, what sort of target there is for you to try and beat, since ultimately we're competing against each other, but probably the people having the most fun are the ones competing against themselves. So yeah, is that all clear? Hopefully it's all clear. So, the fun thing that we like to do going along is to try and predict who is going to be where. Now, some of these may be easier to guess than others, but I don't want to spoil anything. And that is because it's very fun when we catch each other by surprise. Now, obviously, unfortunately, there is a team that has to be 36. Thankfully, they are going to be above Mysterious Team. But they are the only team in the league who is yet to get a win so far on the board. The question is, how convincing did they come 36th? And well, quite convincing. Their average power ranking that they received was 35.72. It is the lowest we've ever seen, by a distance, mainly because of the 2 teams that dropped out last season. The highest anyone placed them was 34th. If I'm not mistaken, although part of me is saying that that might be incorrect and that someone might have put them 33rd, but only one person. I think that might have been the case. They have had a very hard schedule in the Mars Conference. There's only one person who has had a statistically harder schedule. They are underperforming based still on seed. They were, I guess in theory, they're kind of performing. if 36 was in the other conference, I guess. But the 35th seed, you'd expect people to be ranking them 35th across both conferences. So they got to pump their numbers up. Mon difference isn't looking too healthy, and obviously 0-9 gives you a 9 loss streak. Lycanroc Midnight is actually their kill leader. Obviously, all of their mons are named Techo Time, so one of them was going to be kill leader. Got 5 kills with it. But you got to respect Techo's confidence. I mean, they're an experienced player, and they've chosen not to make any transfers, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm all about that life. So obviously, multiple people had them 34th in their rankings, so both the numbers are 34 there. Because 34 is counted, and a lot of people, a majority of people, had them 36, which is hard in this spot. If you're in the spot the Samurott are in, we've had multiple teams be winless before at the mid-season break. That's not uncommon. But when you're the only winless team, and every other team has at least 2 wins, it's tough to put the Samurott anywhere other than 36, and I think most people were expecting them here. Now, we pre-season had them at B tier for their raw draft. I don't know if I'd still agree with that. I'd have to do a whole another draft league tier stream. Look at their remaining schedule. They will next week be playing the Dien's Dino. They will have the Tampa Turtwig, the Bradford Bulu, Jersey Jolteon's Dakar Drapion, who is a big target, of course, the Bolton Boldore, Nottingham Noivern, and Plymouth Pachirisu. They're going to get off the bottom of the conference. The reality is they're going to need to win 3 of them games. Almost certainly not going to happen with 2 unless they get a lot of favours. So, can they win 2 of those remaining games? Yeah, probably. We're going to have to see whether they can. When you look at franchise best showing, they did go 4-7 in Season 7. It was a very strong performance, albeit they were unlucky to only really be 3 off the bottom of the conference in that regard. And they did get 3 wins last season. And they're going to need, like I say, 3 wins to really be the target. They had 3 wins at mid-season. Sorry, they finished with 4. Yeah, they had 3 wins on the board after 9 weeks. So this is a tough spot to be in. But, you know, it's cool. It's cool. Their mon difference is already at -34, though. And that's not looking too hot for trying to keep it under 41. So, the only way is up for Techo and the Samurott. That's fine. I'm just assuming Techo's coolness. Yeah. Is Miles busted? Well, we'll have to see what the majority think. You know? Miles are very loud, but are they the majority? So who is number 35? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask, because it is the Irish Inkays. They are in their debut season, and often teams struggle in their debut season. They do already have 2 wins on the board, and they did win in the most recent week to mid-season, which is pretty cool. They have, however, had a rather easy schedule. Statistically speaking, in the Smiles Conference. They may be bottom of the Smiles Conference, but that's okay. That's okay. Sandy Shocks, which I believe is called Sandy Cheeks, has got 7 kills on the board. They too are like, I don't need this in my life. No transfers. I'm chilling. They were tied 30th-ish seed with a bunch of other teams. So perhaps they want to get them numbers going to perform to seed, but seed is how much you care about performing to your seed is completely up to you, really. Now, their average ranking was 34.72, so notice the difference there. 35.72, 34.72, which means perhaps they can consider themselves a little bit unlucky to be at 35th. There were people who had them 33rd, quite a lot. One person had them 32nd in their power ranking, but a number of people did have them rock bottom at 36th, which perhaps, you know, might be surprising. I had their draft as A tier at the start of the season. What do I know? To be fair, their draft is probably still quite good. As indeed it rightly says here, the debut season so far for the Inkays has seen struggles with bright moments intertwined. 2 wins in the most recent 3 weeks. They are finding their form after a very slow start. Yeah, will Elvis the Mega Houndoom get out of the kennels? Because I'm pretty sure they've only used Mega Houndoom once, maybe even 0 times. They're Mega with solar power. They have a Torkoal. Houndoom hasn't come yet, so maybe it will. I don't know. But the remaining schedule is the second hardest in the Smiles Conference in terms of that. The good thing about having a hard schedule remaining is you're pretty much always playing teams above you. So you kind of stand to gain more by winning. A bit of copium, but it is actually true. They play the Mimes, the Gallade, the Scorbunny, the Bellossom, the Litten, the SuperRods, Lumineon, and the Yanma. Now, most people probably wouldn't have them winning more than one of those matches. Perhaps 2. They're going to need to find some levels to compete. Will they? Because there's another team right near them, I think, in the Smiles Conference that is coming in right next door from 34.72 to 33.28 as an average power ranking. The Lincoln Ludicolo that actually leads. I got the logo right, but not the name. Here you are. Now, of course, leads Ludicolo. Still same franchise of sorts, just about, though managing merch for that is a bit of a nightmare. But Loop is here. Loop is here, and he is performing bang to seed. Everyone agrees that 34 is the number for Loop and Shell Smash United. They have a more healthy Mon difference, not to say that -19 is healthy, of course, and they lost their most recent 2 games. They had a pretty average schedule, but Loop knows all about his schedule, and I think he knows not to care about it. He's in his 6th season of Smiles Go for Miles, and Edgar the X-Cloud is actually his kill leader with 5 kills, interestingly enough. Now, there was a person who had 31 as their ranking for Loop, but he was unable to break into the top 30. Nobody having them inside the top 30, which I'm going to be honest, when no one's putting you inside the top 30, it's quite sad. Like, no one wants to be in the club of no top 30 ranks, because if you're in that, you're not in that, you're in the bottom 6 for everyone. Who wants to be looked at like that? Unless you just like bottoms, and frankly, I do too. 35, though, was the lowest that the Ludicolo received. Therefore, nobody had him right at the bottom. Perhaps that's cool. He's made no changes to his draft, which I would probably say is a bad idea. I did have it D tier, but that's okay. Like I say, pretty normal remaining schedule. They've got Appletuns, Scorbunny, Starmies, Mimes, Aggron, Altarias, Entei. They finish with the Blazerkins, so you know, at least it's an easy finish where they get at least 1 win. But it's going to be kind of tough because they got 7 wins last season. Luke made changes. That's on me then. I'll write them in now. I'll write them in now when I find them. He made the transfer of Zygarde and Metagross. I must have missed them. Why Zygarde 50%, I don't know, but hey. He's got rid of Latias and Ferrothorn. Okay. Does it change much? Maybe. We'll see. How can we trust the stats now? I'm going to be honest. I was finishing this morning before I went to my nan's, so things are very, very, very rushed at the end. So do look to proofread, but the data is correct. I'm confident of that. He does have a ground type now. That is actually a good addition. Is it going to help them get to 7 wins? Well, they're going to need 5 in these remaining 8 games. Now that's rich. I think we would probably all have to pay Luke financially as a prize for getting 5 wins in these remaining 8 games. And getting 7 wins on the board again, because last season he was doing strong. It's a very strong draft. This season it's gone a little bit wonky, been a little bit repetitive, but then the repetition is a staple Loop's battles, and often he somehow finds success in that regard. But I'm afraid, you know, before those 7 wins, as you can see, they were sat at 4 wins in Season 4. But yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And even 7 wins was only enough for 13th in the Smiles Conference last season, but that is tough. And that's just what you get for being in Smiles. So who is going to be number 33? That's a question. Who's going to be 33? Because I think we've approached the point where it is no longer very easily guessable who will be where. Is it Trox? What would Trox's team be? The Zurich Zeb Striker. Probably just the Swiss Army Knives, to be honest. That'd be better. Pachirisu is your guess? The Trox Trapinch? Yeah. King Trox, the King Trox Kingdra. Trox would have a Dramper. Don't associate me with Zurich. Fair enough. The Boy Pussy Beldum. King Trox Nido Kings. Just in all caps. Nice. Wow. Casper, you're actually spot on. Number 33 with an average of 32.52 is the Plymouth Pachirisu. As still comfortably above the Ludicolos. They too are 2-7. A lot of people 2-7 in fact. Now I believe they are in the Mars conference. So this is a slight error on my part. They are, at least I knew in my head. There you go. Yeah, sorry. And they have had a pretty hard schedule. 6 kills with Punk Rock the Typhlosion, Clicking Eruption, having a good time. This is their 2nd season. It does feel like they've struggled to claim more scalps than they were doing last time around. That old Mega Pidgeot draft. Can they get themselves up into the mix? Well, some people did believe it. They did receive a 28th from one ranker and multiple 29s. And nobody had them rock bottom either. In fact, only one person had them 35th. Everyone between the realms of 29 and 34 seemed common for the Plymouth Pachirisu. I only had their draft in C tier. But they have made some changes to it. No more Iron Bundle, Thundurus, and Meloetta. They're bringing in the Arctozolt, Barraskewda, and the Demon. Hoopa Unbound. That's certainly some wins in a bottle right there. They have the Buckingham Bonsly, Bolton Boldore, Litwicks, Drapion, Dino, Noivern, Bulu, and Samurott yet to play. Definitely some potential wins in there. They did, of course, find themselves down in 12. Once again, struggling. So many so many teams, franchises went 7-10 in Smiles last season. There wasn't enough for them, even though they were up there in the middle of the season. They struggled and ultimately fell off. Every remaining schedule looks rough. Yeah, I mean, that's what the Miles Conference seems to think. I think it's just a matter of perspective. Depending on how you look at the Miles Conference, it can all look tough or it can all look quite easy. It all sort of depends. So who is number 32? Who gets above the Plymouth Pachirisu, but still trapped in the bottom 5? That's the thing. Rye guesses the Entei. Yeti guesses Mojak. Casper also on the Drapions. Well, you're all wrong. Because it is the Ontario Oshawott in their debut season, who with an average of 30.48 over 2 above the Plymouth Pachirisu, yet they find themselves down at 32, despite an average of 30.48. While that lets you know something, and that's that things are very, 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 very close. But they have had a very easy schedule in the Miles Conference. They have had 19 kills with their Mega Charizard, who has, I believe, got over half of their kills as their entire draft, perhaps pushing for 3/4. That is Flamesard, of course. Now, let me introduce you to something that I have spotted on this page, and it's something that you should be familiar with. Some of you may know it already, but it's called the Asterisk of Shame. Now, I can't think of a better name for it because it is quite shameful. The asterisk only appears when you, and you alone, ranked your team higher than anyone else, or lower than anyone else. Now, you can see that Master Baguette believes that they are 24th out of the 36 teams this season, and you know what? You have to respect the confidence. But the reality is, nobody else thought they were any higher than 28th. That's quite a big difference, but you know what? It's on Master Baguette to back that up and get the job done anyway. Prove us all wrong. They've brought in Slitherwing, Diancie, and Golem, which, to be fair, I'm excited to see them use, given that Alcremie, Cobalion, and especially Zarude really didn't get to come to many battles, so I respect the changes. If you've got Mons that you haven't had any use bringing, then you might as well trade them. The exclamation point of humility. Yeah, so I guess it's something along those lines. They are, of course, in the tied 30 newbie club, but to be fair, they've got 3 wins on the board. And ultimately, I think 3 wins is the minimum you need at mid-season to be in the playoff race. I think 2 is too low, and I will turn into a cam streamer if anyone with 2 wins makes it to playoffs from mid-season. But 3 is possible. And, you know, only minus 14 mon difference, which across the average of those losses does still mean losing by more than 4 mon difference. It's not great, but it's turnaroundable. And you got to remember, it's just been a bad patch towards the end of this half. A couple losses. When it comes to what they've got left, though, is the Bolton Boldore, the Merseyside Mimikyu, the Jersey Jolteons, the Sleaford Snorlax, the Tampa Turtwig, Regirock, Combis, and Super Hoopa. Going to need to be a run. Going to need to be a run, that's for sure. SuperRods are not in the bottom 5. They are not. Indeed, the first season on record for the Oshawott has seen them baton and pass their way to 3 wins, putting Canada on the map, indeed, for the first time in Mars Go for Mars, if I'm not mistaken. Have we had any Canadian teams before? I don't believe we have. Until now, of course. They could have got more W's with a bit more luck. There is, of course, one battle I'm thinking of, but they were probably a bit unfortunate not to get their 4th win. And maybe they need that to pay them back, because this is a tough second half. It really is. So, you know, no shame. The Oshawott debut season already had a lot of memorable plays, and I'm sure there's more to come. They are ranked 32nd overall. Harshly so. Their average, not many people actually thought they should be 32nd. That's where their average is, unfortunately, in comparison to everyone else. Not quite on the mark. There is a team that is just above them. Who is that? I'm going to go get some more water. All right. Entei, Mojack Time, Drapions, SuperRods. Well, Cheerio's right. It is the SuperRods and Talia who have come out of the darkness of last season. They've joined Team Trans, and they're suddenly twanning themselves to 3 wins, but you'll notice they're not number 31. Because for the first time in mid-season power rankings, we have a dead tie. And both the SuperRods and the Dakar Drapion have an average of exactly 29.96. They are tied for 30th. This has never happened before. But across the course of 27 rankings. Did that actually happen with Jolteons and Ponyta? I thought they were right next to each other. Well, here you go. Really? So I don't remember having to adjust the ranking. But hey, it happened. They were bottom seed coming to this season. But the Magikarp is on the logo. They're on a win streak. They may have minus 16 mon difference, but they, after the despair of last season's winless campaign, have got 3 wins on the board. Nobody had the SuperRods lower than 33rd. Somebody had them 19th. I have to say, I did think I mistyped when I was putting in their rankings, but I double checked, and that's definitely where they put them. And I respect that. It wasn't me, just to clarify. But you can see my rankings if you want. They have 10 kills with, I believe, Secret Ingredient. If I'm remembering the nickname right. Talia? Out of all, 10 kills. Looking good. 4 transfers have been made. 4 transfers. So they are changing things up. And I know they're drafting C tier. Not that I know anything again. They've gone for a faster Water Dark type Mega. They've got a Ditto for some anti-sweep, which is certainly a lot more threatening as a standalone mon, as a Blissey. Hitmontop is probably more threatening than a Magikarp though, and Virizion has come in for Bramblegast. On the whole, probably look like quite good transfers, certainly for a more direct on offensive team. They are 16th as it stands in the Smiles Conference. So, remaining schedule, because they've had a pretty average one so far. They got the Altarias, Bellossom, Mimes, Yanma, Scorbunny, Inkays, a very, very important fixture, the Litten and the Lumineon. And yes, they did have 1 win last season, but it was a bye win. So it was nice to see them get one on the battlefield this season. And they did, of course, get minus 69 as a mon difference, which is a record. Not a great one to have, but a nice one regardless. I don't know why I wrote for franchise best today. Last season the SuperRods set mon difference record for the wrong reason. This season is looking more promising and they're unbeaten since the female takeover. That's true. They actually are. Management had a change at the SuperRods and they haven't looked back. So watch out. Certainly the Altarias will be playing them next week. But again, they are tied for 30th with the Dakar Drapion, who are one of the most interesting teams to talk about today in this mid-season power ranking as a whole, as they did come into the season as the number 9 seed. They have had the most difficult schedule of any team statistically in the Miles Conference, but it seems like not many people still believed in them. Multiple rankers having them 35th in their rankings. Now, this is Mojak's 4th season. Let's not forget they won Season 3, although that was a number of years ago at this point. And it seems like some of that belief has started to wane, and maybe our new teams just don't know the power of Mojak. Now, can he click the psychic move with Tapu Lele is the question. Can he win games without an alarming amount of hacks going in his favour is a bigger question. That I think a lot of people will remember. But he's gone for Gastrodon, PZ, Shuckle, and Sceptile. I have to say Toxtricity hadn't really had any impact. Gothagrigus didn't really suit the draft. Archeops was a good lead, but I guess Shuckle's going to try and be that to some regard, and Basculin hadn't really done anything. So we'll see. They have the Bradford Bulu, the London Lunala, Regirock, Pachirisu, Samurott, Mimikyu, Snorlax, and Noivern. Now, I gather that a lot of you have said all the schedules look tough, but you would expect this to be the easiest, and I agree. Not just on the numbers, but it passes the eye check as well. These are a lot of winnable games, especially if it's the Lodnan Lunala. Might be me typing very fast and tired. The Lodna Lunala. I'll change that on their ranking when we get to them as number 29. Spoilers. Despite showing championship winning caliber in the past, the consecutive podiums, winning Season 3 and then Season 4's 10-4 in league play. The Drapion are not strangers, of course. Surprisingly weak league play. They did not have a good time when they last featured in Season 6. Have they fell off? Or are they about to mature like fine wine? Who knows? But 2-7 is not where they wanted to be at this point. That's for sure. And so with that, we head into the top 30. Definitively top 30. Inside the top 30. Who is 29? It is the Entei, who are having a far tougher time than last season. They are 15th in the Smiles Conference. Perhaps harsh to be here. They have had a hard schedule and they are in the Superior Conference, but most people don't agree with that, it would seem. They were tied 16th, 17th seed coming in, and they are not up to that at the moment in this generation. I gather they had a little bit less time. They are in their 5th season though. Arcat, the coach, Slay Queen, the Enamorous, of course, has 8 kills on this Sun offense extraordinaire. Their average power ranking is 28.6. They are over a ranking away from the tie at 30. And they were placed as high as 22nd by one person, but 24th by multiple. And the lowest ranking they actually received that contributed to their average was 31. So perhaps a little unlucky again to be 29th. But one person did have them as low as 33rd. And the sun is fast fading, I have to say, because Mega Charizard Y has been passed off, as has Walking Wake, Magnezone, and Piloswine. Why one needed Magnezone with a Charizard Y, I don't know. And Mega Garchomp, Weavile, Suicune, and Delphox are the Mons coming in. It is a real huge change to the entire draft and how it's going to function in the game. And perhaps you looked at transfers when deciding your rankings. Perhaps you just dragged and decided what looked right. And perhaps you took some acid and then just threw your mouse about the room, which is I think what some people did with their rankings. But when it comes to the remaining schedule for the Enteis, you can see that there's a lot of potential wins for them. Starting with the Gallade, and then the Yanma, Ponyta, Aggron, Rotoms, Starmies, Ludicolo, and Appletuns. The thing. Until last season, well, counting last season, the Enteis have done nothing but improve since coming into the league. They made playoffs for the first time, which was nice. Albeit they've lost in the first round. They want to get a win in playoffs, but to do that, they're going to have to make it in the first place, and it is an uphill battle. Alright. So who's 28th? Who's 28th? Is it another Smiles Conference team? Because the averages get really blurry. Not a single person has got this correct. Because it's actually icy. And the Yorkshire Yanma. People don't seem to know about the power of this man in the second half of the season. He has got the easiest remaining schedule in the Smiles Conference, and he's only 14th in the Smiles Conference. But people don't understand that. He's only got -9 Mon difference in the Smiles Conference. The comeback is so on the cards for the Yorkshire Yanma to do it again. Do you just think it was a fluke last season or what? I don't understand. Perhaps I'm just getting angry because I had the Yorkshire Yanma a lot higher than 28th. But hey. King Gambit, Boldore has 10 kills on the board. And he was seeded, tied 21st with another team who I've forgotten. He's in his 5th season, albeit Yorkshire Yanma merch is not to exist yet, because one of those is, of course, with the Birmingham Barboach in Season 3 alongside Maddie. An average of 27.4. Does beat out the Entei comfortably, but it firmly puts them at 28th. There were multiple people who had the Yanma in the 30s. One person had them 19th. 2 people had them 20th. I know, exactly, because I was one of them. They have made a lot of changes, though. Perhaps they don't understand what they're doing with their changes. They've brought in Mega Camerupt, Galarian Slowking, very strong mon, reliably, perhaps a Trick Room setter. They've brought in Walking Wake without direct sun support and a Killer Wattrel without any other obvious weather support. So kind of strange. But they have got rid of their Mega Manectric, who I believe was 0-5 in 5 games. Hatterina's come in. Goodra and Armarouge. So here you go. Now he's got the easiest remaining schedule in the Smiles Conference. I did have his draft at C tier. He starts with the Littens. He's got the Entei, Appletuns, SuperRods, Lumineon, Aggron, Starmies, and Inkays. Now, I see IC winning at least 5 of those. I don't think it's going to be enough to get him back up into playoffs, but we'll see. I also don't know what he's done with his draft. It was pretty poop draft, and now I don't know if it's much better. We'll see. Indeed, despite last season's late charge, IC and the Yanma have never made playoffs as the Yanma. Of course, Season 9, it wasn't enough, despite going 10 and 7th last season in the Miles Conference, which was very stacked in the middle. In Season 4, they went 7 and 7. That wasn't enough either. Will there be another comeback run, is the question. Well, now you ain't got a clue what's coming. If the Yanma are 28th, nothing you expect is really here. I bet you don't even know who's number 1. Number 27. The Appletuns. Straight away. More Smiles Conference. They are on a 4-loss streak. One of the most out-of-form teams coming into mid-season, and that can't have helped. They were 12th seed coming into this season. Only really found a lot of success with their Galissapod. 5th season for the Appletons. They are actually allowed merch now. The boy with 8 kills, but a lot has changed. They've brought in the Mega Sizzle back into the fray. They've gone for the Gliscor. They've got normal Hoopa, who I gather is tier 4, which is wild. So why not get it? And a Mienshao, of course, as well. And that does mean goodbye to the Gallade Iron Tread combo. Indeed. He has only -4 mon difference. And he is in 27th. Just saying, I'm not going to try and spoil anything about how I feel about these rankings. Or at least why I think they are. But you can probably guess why. They've had a pretty average schedule. They were ranked as high as 18th by multiple people, and yet they are in 27th. Only one person had them 32nd, but some people had them in the 30s. And there you go. I had their draft in A tier, but there's a lot changing to it now. They have the Ludicolos, Mimes, Yanma, Altarias, Starmies, Blazerkins, Aggron, and Entei left to play. It does seem like there's a good number of wins to be found. Let's not forget they were 3rd in league play last season. 3rd in league play. But that meant they make playoffs. And the Appletons have never made playoffs twice in a row. A very interesting fact that actually applies to more than just them. over a large number of seasons. It actually applies to some other teams. They were top 8. A very, very, very respectable finish, going 11-6. This is a team of quality and caliber. Has the franchise got it this season? Apparently, most people don't think so. So who's 26? Who is 26? There's a number of teams you probably would expect around here that we haven't seen yet. Already heading to the top 25, but at 26 it's the Red Hill Regirock, because they are 2, 3, and 6. They are 14th in the Miles Conference. You might start to spot a trend here. They only have 4 Mon difference down as well. You'll notice a lot of similarities between the Red Hill Regirock and the Isle of Appletuns. They have the exact same record, the exact same Mon difference, and the exact same win streak. Make that make sense. In fact, let me double check that. I think I had to double check that at the time because I couldn't quite believe it. But I believe it is true. Yep, it's true. Quite incredible, actually. So, who will do better in the second half? Well, one might expect the Appletons, who have a slightly easier schedule statistically. But at 25.2, they edge out the Appletons 25.68, and they were ranked as high as 15th by one person, and that asterisk will tell you who that one person was. They were ranked 18th by others, and of course 30th is the lowest ranking that counts towards their average. Their kill leader is Bug ? The Iron Moth. But you will not see that in the second half of the season, as they have traded it away and are once again bringing in Heatran halfway through the season, joined by Flygon and Cursola. Means no Mienshao, but Flygon probably an upgrade on Gligar, most would agree. You had a very strong draft at the start of the season already. Can they pull themselves out of it, despite playing the Hoopa, Litwicks, Dino, Bonsly, Snorlax, Oshawott, Mimikyu, and Lunala? This is going to need to be levels from a Regirock, who are yet, I believe, to appear in a playoffs. We'll see. Tenth was where they placed. 10 and 7 was the record they finished with. They are... Last season they struggled with Mon difference and got the wins. This time they're struggling with getting the wins, but they've got the Mon difference in light of that. What's better? I'm not sure Ariana would say the latter. Speaking of Ariana, number 25 is not the Altarias, because it is the Bradford Bulu. And Tim, 12th in Miles. They came in as 33rd seed. They're up at 25 in the power rankings. The Bulu are going up in the world, and most people's expectations and visions as well. 4 wins already, and they've had a hard schedule. They've had a hard schedule as well. They got the Kartana, they got into their 5th season, and they've been unlocked with an average of 23.72. They are far away and above the Regirock. This is a definitive top 25, and there is a gap in terms of most people's rankings to this point, which I do not understand. But hey, they were ranked as high as 16th by some people, and by that I mean one person, and 17th by another. Now Tim, being Tim, you can see does have an asterisk of shame. He put himself 36th. But the lowest anyone else actually put him was 33rd. He's made no transfers. Why would he need to? His apparently D-tier draft is working fantastic. And he's yet to play the Drapion, Combees, Samurott, Turtwig, Noivern, Jolteons, Pachirisu, and Boldore. Any believers in the unbeaten run? 8 wins to go 12 and 5? I could see it. I'd predict it, but those do look a lot more winnable than you would often say for the Bulus at mid-season, given that they've already got 4 wins on the board. And I believe, yes, 5 wins is the most they have had in a season. And that was actually last season, 5 and 12. There may be a bit more pressure on this season, but you would surely expect them to get more than 5 wins this season. I mean, the power rankings would suggest that on average we think he will. The average power rankings from the community. I am perhaps a Bulu hater, as I am one of those 33s, as I just see Tim somehow losing like 7 of his last remaining games. But I don't want to see that. So yeah. I'm not going to get my hopes up, because I'm too attached to the teams like the Bulu and the Litwicks. So I don't want to believe in them. Who is 24? Who thinks that they are worthy of being above the Bulu? Well, it is the Rotoms, who are also 4 and 5 at number 24, 11th in the Smiles Conference. They're doing great. They have had a statistically very easy schedule to get to this point, but they won't care about that one bit. They've got Big Dragon and it's 13 kills, putting in the work. They are slap bang 23.6, just above the Bulu. Just. Despite being 11th rather than 12th in their conference. They've traded in a couple mons, Pincurchin and Kingler. No more Scrafty. Interesting. 23.6. They were ranked as high as 18th by one person, but they are very much between the realms of 20 and 30 quite consistently. Has to be said, they are yet to play the Starmies, Littens, Aggron, Scorbunnies, Entei, Mimes, Blazerkins, and Altarias. It's tough. It is tough. Tough cheese for the Rotoms. How good are they really? We are going to find out in the second half of this season. I don't actually remember where I had the Rotoms, but I think it was like 28. I can check. I had the Rotoms 29. Interesting. I'm apparently not a believer. We'll have to see whether that's the wrong move. Okay. Who is 23? Who is 23? Well, we might as well dump some more Smiles teams down here because it's the Aggron at 23. Just put all the Smiles teams down bottom. Why not? Well, the Aggron have had quite a hard schedule. With Frog, the Mega Swampert, they have lost their last 4 games in a row. People seem to forget the Aggron were 4 and 1. How fast things change. Well, they are still overperforming and having a good time. They were seeded just 28 of the teams, and they are performing well. They overperformed last season, and it seems like last season may not have been a fluke. What you can definitely count on the Aggron for doing is being on point. They are the number 23 power rank team, and their average from everyone's rankings is 23 exactly. Nobody was a rash ranker for Aggron. Multiple people ranking them 16th. Quite high. In fact, that's playoffs. Multiple people ranking them 27th. Do look for when people have ranked you 16th or higher, because that means they think you're making playoffs, most likely, unless they had multiple more teams from one conference in their top 16 than another. And wow, I bet no one did that. Lots of people did that. So, they're getting rid of Infernape, Cyclizar, and Vikavolt. And then there's Ironmoth, Porygon 2, and Bellibolt coming in. Pretty cool. Only had them as a C-tier draft, but they are yet to play the Ponytas, Blazikins, Rotoms, Entei, Ludicolos, Yanma, Appletuns, and Starmies. That's a sort of schedule that could certainly go either way. Doesn't actually look that easy when you look at it, and yet that's quite an easy one in the Smile Conference. There you go. Interestingly, I had to change almost nothing compared to last season because the Aggron last season were 4 and 5 as well, and they were also -7 mon difference. It's not the Lincoln Ludicolos, it's the leads, but every time I type it I get confused because they've been Ludicolo for everyone. It's the exact same colour, so tolerate. But they're on a 4-loss streak, which they weren't on last season, I believe. Last season, they finished 8 and 9. They've never gone positive before, whether as the Aggron or the Horns Heracross. They were so close to it. But 8 and 9 was only enough for 12th in the Smiles Conference last season. You got to go positive as well. And he didn't. Well, he's here trying to go positive. Will he? Will he? I don't know. I don't know. Well, well, well. Who's it going to be next? Our ranking number 22. There is a team that we've perhaps forgotten about. And that we've had the Rotoms, who are 11th in the Smiles Conference. The Aggron, who are 12th in the Smiles Conference. Oh yes, the Noivern, who are 13th in the Miles Conference. 22nd. They are ranked, but perhaps rightly so. They have had a tough schedule up to this point. There's a lot of believers in this strong man side. Levi with the 4 and 5. A lot of teams 4 and 5. And there's a lot of room for movement in there. They've performed well with Buttercup. The Tornadus, they've made a lot of changes. Perhaps the only team in history to bring in a Cresselia. Now, I have seen the strength of the power of the duo of Cresselia and Crawdons. I've not seen just how powerful it can be when you click the right moves, but we know it definitely has the potential to be. And a Hisuian Typhlosion and a Hisuian Avalugg, which I believe is a new mon. Also coming in. That means no more Primarina, Espeon, Houndoom, or Miss Magus. Have I just not filled rankings in? What? What? You had Levi 17th. Well, then this should be 17. I have to look up and down. It's easily missed. Well, there you go. Hi, gang. I've just seen those that voted for me so high. I really applaud those sillies having so much faith in me. I have no idea what I'm doing with my draft. Yeah, I mean, you drafted Mega Electric. At least you got rid of it. Cresselia plus Mega Venusaur. Wow. That is cool. I mean, your rankings are definitely there, Sniper. It's just that I had to fill in all of these numbers this morning in a hurry, looking up and down the numbers list. So there will probably be minor mistakes. Nothing major. It won't have affected their numbers. It will have just affected this thing. It's cool. It's cool. .76. Comfortably above the Aggron on the average. Again, somebody believe the Noivern will finish as high as 14th, making playoffs, and who knows, perhaps go further. But someone had them as low as 31st. That is wild. 26th was the next after that. Very interesting. They were seeded, of course, tied 14th, so fair enough. They had their draft as S tier. I don't know if I can ever put a Cresselia draft in S tier anymore, but we could see some interesting stuff. We really could. They've got Litwicks, Jolteons, Dino, Boldore, Bulu, Pachirisu, Samurott, and Drapion. You would expect a strong finish. They are currently positioned above all 4 of these teams, but they're going to need more than 4 wins to make playoffs. They got to swipe upwards. And these, the important fixtures for the Noivern. Do they make it back to playoffs? This power ranking would suggest not. Interestingly. The power rankings are questionably accurate, it has to be said. Oh, I don't know. Who misses out on the top 20? Well, with an average of 21.76, the Noivern were 22nd. With an average of 21.52, the Super Hoopa are at number 21. Just missing out on positive for everything, really. Losing their most recent 2 to be here. 3 negative mon difference. By 21st seed, Nelson is in his 6th season. Very experienced player, but a very, very easy schedule statistically. So... interesting. They've got the Goldengo, of course. Bit of a conceptually busted mon, and no surprise to see it right here as their kill leader. 21.52, just edging out. Somebody had them 15th. Somebody had them 28th, but only 18 and 26 counting. They have got rid of Arcanine and Chandelure, and the Ghost and Fire type gang is going down. Mega Diancie down as well. They've brought in Mega Ordino. Leafeon. They've actually brought in Toxtricity. They believe that that mon can finally do something. Those don't really matter, apart from the fact that Ordino is super boring. They've brought in Cinderace, so expect that to do some work. How much work can it do? They're going to need some serious work. They still play the Regirock, Dino, Snorlax, Litwicks, Mimikyu, Bonsly, Lunala, and Oshawott, of which the vast majority of our teams above them in the conference. And they swipe upwards. They could finish so high if they get on track. But will they? That's the question. That is the question. Yeah, there's quite a synergy between Mega Ordino and Goldengo for sure. Problem is, Nelson's only gone positive once. Ever. And never as the Super Hoopa. Can we actually back on him to go positive? I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced, you know? You know, they can perhaps beat the Regirock if they get off to a good start to make it 5-5. But if they don't, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse before it gets better. It's tough. 54 months from Maddie, by the way. Coach of the Cheshire Combies, who weirdly we haven't seen yet. Anyone think the Combies are going to be number 20? Who is going to be number 20, in fact? Because we're at another point where I think there's a jump in teams. Well, of course, someone had the Combies 36 last season, so you just don't know. Into the top 20 with the Scunthorpe Scorbunny, 10th in the Smiles Conference. They are still just negative. A lot of 4 and 5 teams, need I remind you, but they've had a relatively tough schedule. They are coached by Azazel and Raindrop. They've got the Dragapult picking up some kills. Perhaps it could have had more, but you can see the gap here, 21.52, 20.96. Isn't actually as large as I seem to remember. Multiple people had this team 15th. Togedemaru and B-Barrel, however, is the team mons that they've brought in. Very interesting transfers, albeit for Centiskorch and Regigigas. Azazel can always pull their meme teams off, and he's doing alright, but can the Scunthorpe Scorbunnies make it back to playoffs is the main question, because I don't believe they did last season. They play the Limerick Lumineon, Lincoln Ludicolo, Irish Inkays, Rotterdam Rotoms, Fish Pond SuperRods, the Ponyta, Bellossom, and Galley. There's a lot of winnable games in there, but is there enough? Is there enough? That is the question. That is the question. They only ever made the playoffs once Season 8. And they came 4th, but it was in the Miles Conference. You can see ever since moving to Smiles, they've nothing but struggled. So they're doing alright. They're not really struggling. They're on the cusp. They just went negative last season. And they're just negative so far this season. Maybe Raindrop will add that extra drop of spice into the mix that's needed to get the team over the line, albeit the Licky were not close to doing that last season. They're in the top 20. There's a lot of potential wins. So how do we have teams above them? Well, when we start with teams above them, fair to say that I've just noticed one team. You don't need to worry about that. That's for me to worry about. I'll make sure I don't misclick. Because number 19 is the Snorlax, the Sleaford Snorlax, 10th in the Miles Conference, right next to their pair in the Smiles Conference. It's almost like people just looked at where teams were in the standings right now and didn't think about their draft or remaining matchups or schedule. But you know what? There's a lot of variance in most of these teams. Most people were having a range of at least 10 for the rankings they received, and the Snorlax are no different, really. They come in as number 19 in their debut season. They're above their opening seed. They have got a Regirock as their kill leader somehow. They've had a relatively easy schedule, nothing too crazy. They did lose their last couple games, but they are positive in the Mon difference despite being negative in the record. 20.92 is, you know, comfortably above the Scorbunny. Yeah, by 0.1 of a ranking, and by 0.1 I mean one ranker made the difference here from 20.96 to 20.92. Makes it quite difficult. As you can see, they've made no changes, if I'm not mistaken. They're still playing the Combees, Bonslys, Hoopa, Oshawott, Regirock, Lunala, Drapion, and Mimikyu. You'll notice it says, even the Snorlax have entered the season in style. They immediately challenged for playoff positions, and that's where they are right now. A cool stat is that since sort of the new era, since Season 5, only 25% of rookies made playoffs in their first season. Pretty cool. Pretty cool stat. Very more interestingly so, is that there's only one season. This is a proper Kahoot question, guys. There's only one season, albeit it will almost certainly change this season because we've had so many rookies. There's only one season up to this point where more than one rookie franchise has made playoffs in that season. Can you tell me what season it is? Bonus points to the first person who can do that. Because other than that, it's one. It is Subson, and of course it would be Subson, because he was one of the teams to do it. Season 8, we saw the Gloucestershire Gallade and the Dien's Dino. 2 teams made playoffs in that debut season for them, and 2 teams didn't. Whereas in Season 5, 1 rookie made it, 4 didn't. Season 6, 1 rookie made it, 6 didn't. In Season 7, 1 rookie made it, 2 didn't. In Season 9, 1 rookie made it last season, and 4 didn't. We've got 6 rookies this season, and will more than one make it this season? Well, in fact, it's quite possible that it isn't the case. Season 8 may stand as the only one, but most people are thinking about what rookie teams we haven't had appear so far. And in fact, there's only 2 rookie teams left we haven't seen in these rankings, which is interesting. Sleaford Snorlax are definitely a team that could potentially change that. But who is number 18? Who is it? Teams around this area. You would expect it to be teams around this area in their conference. We've seen all of the bottom 9 of each conference. Nobody's migrating too much higher, it seems. So one would expect this to be the Altarias, or the Snorlax, or the Ponyta, or the Lumineon, or the Bonsly, or is it the Turtwig? Or is it someone else? It is the Altarias. Ariana has often had a polarizing schedule and been a rather streaky team, while they've got themselves onto a 3-win streak, which is a very big deal, in fact, coming into this point, with their very average schedule thus far. They've got plenty to look forward to. You'll notice that they too are just above the Sleaford Snorlax, who at 20.96 for the Scorbunny, 20.92 for the Snorlax, and then at 18th, despite an average of 20.6, are the Altarias. Now, somebody had them 13th, somebody had them 14th. Multiple people, I think, had them 14th, but nobody had them below 30. In fact, only one person had them 30th. Their kill leader is a Dramper, which is quite funny. And they are nearly performing to see. They got a nicely positive Mon difference. The Altaria is always strong with the Mon difference, of course. Nearly positive. So important, I emphasize that they have won 3 games in a row. They've brought in Tinglu and Mega Beedrill. This seems like an upgrade pretty much no matter what they got rid of. But they got rid of the Random Barraskewda, Claydol, Revavroom, Mega Aerodactyl. They brought in an Earthworm as well, and whatever the fuck a Tatsugiri is. I don't know what that is. It's probably not very good, but they brought in Tinglu and Mega Beedrill, so their draft has got even better immediately. That's just a fact. Tinglu is probably the strongest one in the game in draft. Well, here you go. Fish Pond SuperRods. Starmies, Bellossom, Appletuns, Gallade, Ludicolo, Ponyta, and Rotoms. A mixed schedule. Very tough games across the board. Perhaps in the exception of the Ludicolo, maybe SuperRods. So interestingly, the Water Dragon with Rapid Spin. What the heck? So yes, fun facts is Ariana has made playoffs. Fix this horrendous formatting. There you go. Ariana has made playoffs 3 out of her 5 seasons. 3 out of her 6. Yeah, 3 out of her 5 seasons, because this is the 6th season, so we don't know yet. They came 4th in season 7. But they came top 8 twice in the seasons around that, weirdly. And yeah, if you count the loss streak at the end of last season and the start of this season, they were 1 and 12 in 13 battles, which isn't great. I'll be honest, it's not great. One of the worst runs of any team ever. But they're on a 3-win streak now, so perhaps it's changing. Last season ended, again, of course, with a 7-loss streak, so maybe we don't want to talk about last season, but it is a reality. How much have they learnt from it, and are they on the comeback up? Well, an average of 20.6 might not suggest that, but the fact that they are 18th anyway, I'd say perhaps yes. Where did I have them? I had them 14th, actually. Indeed, I thought I was a little bit higher on them than that. Yeah, there are people who had the Altarias there was one person who had the Altarias at 30, and I believe there was multiple that had them 29. So, that's interesting. I don't know what they were looking at. Trust me, there are worse rankings than putting the Altarias at 30th. There are far worse rankings than that. I think we might have already seen some of them, though. Alright. So, who is next? I kind of want to check. I haven't mistyped something, so you're just going to have to bear with me in a second. You think it's going to be Luke? You think Luke's going to be below Atch? You think it's not just going to go via order? You think it's just going to be perfectly back and forth between the conferences at this point? And be incredibly boring? I don't want to get your hopes up, but the next team. It is Luke. It is the Tampa Turtwig. This is our first team who is currently, as it stands, in playoffs. But the rankers believe, on average, that they are going to just miss out on it. And, well, by a 4-win streak, a comeback from 1-4 to now 5-4. Perhaps there's numbers in it. Luke, of course, has perhaps got a bit of altitude sickness. This is quite high up in the conference already compared to finishing positions last season. But they have had a relatively easy schedule to this point. What I don't know if everyone considers is that they do have a Sneasler, which is completely busted. But they were seeded 32nd, so they are already performing way above the Call of Order, and they are way above the Altarias. Despite being next to each other 18 and 17, the Altarias have an average of 20.6, while the Turtwig are up at 17.2. So one would have to ask, where the fuck are the Jolteons? Because this is clearly the gap between teams people think are making playoffs and teams people think are not. Interestingly. But there's one too many teams that people think are making playoffs. So, one person had the Tampa Turtwig 13th. Some people had them 14th. Nobody had them lower than 24th. And in fact, only one person had them 24th. No changes needed. It's already a great draft. Fair enough. They have a huge game immediately out of the mid-season against the Merseyside Mimikyu. What a win that could be to put them into the mega positive. And by that, just by 2 wins. They play the Samurott after that, Lunala, Bulu, Oshawott, Dino, Bonsly, and Litwicks. That is certainly statistically quite tough, but one would look and see that there's at least 3 wins in there that you would back them to get. That's 8 wins. But 8 isn't going to be enough. Tampa Turtwig are going to have to find something they have not frequently found before. If ever. They were 14th last season in the Smiles Conference, going 7 and 10, just like a million other franchises. Surely they get more than 7 wins this season. We'll see. Because they've played 2 seasons thus far. They have always been 5th from bottom of the conference. There's no way they come 14th this time, right? That would mean they'd be roughly 28th. And we've got them up 17th on average. So, facts are Luke and the Turtwig are improving. And only a collapse in the second half of the season is surely going to change that. So let's see. Everyone is calling Atch or Sark. But I'm afraid it is Casper who is correct. It's the Ponyta. 8th in the Smiles Conference, and they are 16th. On the PRs. 0 mon difference, they are positive. They have had the easiest schedule in the Smiles Conference statistically. They just aren't that fast, and I have to say, when you look at how late the PRs were submitted by them, I have to agree. And they're underperforming. They were 13th seed coming in to their second season. They're abusing a Pokemon that isn't even a Pokemon, with an average of 15.56. They are very much above the Tampa Turtwig, who are kind of on an island here. 20.6, 17.2, and then up to 15.56. Poor Luke. Needs some friends. Multiple people had the Ponyta 12th. One person had them 27th. That wasn't me. I'm not going to say who it is. You can out yourself if you want. But 20th was actually quite a common ranking for them. They were very much tied between this 12th and 20th boundary, so it kind of makes sense that they end up 16th, I guess. They've recently just got rid of the Mega Kangaskhan and brought in the Zard X, which is 3 wins, I guess. Iron Treads and Jolteon coming in is probably an upgrade on the Hydra. Not sure about that spelling. And Dracozold. And a B-tier draft. Playing Aggron, Lumineon, Entei, Litten, Blaziken, Scorbunny, Altarias, and Mimes. They're going to need at least 4 wins and some favours. Do you actually see them making 5 wins here? I'll have to see. Bollocks. There you go. let's not forget that the Ponyta were able to deny the Gallade a top 4 spot when it came down to clutch time. The reality is that they got a huge favour from Loop and the Ludicolos, but they still did it. And got a top 4 finish in their debut season, which is pretty nuts. They're going to need that clutch. They're going to need it. Yeah, the Ponyta have had the easiest schedule in all of Smiles. There's no easy schedule in Smiles. On average, he has played a team that is positioned 10.89th in the conference. There you go. Higher in the conference you are, the easier your schedule technically isn't. Is not true, because it is adapted. It's based on which Silvalio and Taurus in. There's more transfers. You kidding me, bro? Yeah, because no, the schedule is actually adapted to which teams you've played. Like, if you are positioned 5th and you play the team in 6th, it's like you've played the team in 5th because you can't play yourself. So it's kind of adapted to that. I would argue that schedules that say that they're tough remaining like this, though, are deceptively not as bad because it means you play teams above you most of the time, which is better for... You stand to gain more from winning, basically. But make no mistake, it's still better to have an easier schedule now. Not that it makes a difference, it's just like we could pick this at any arbitrary point. We all have to still play each other, so... Still interesting to bear in mind. Let's move on. We talked enough about the Ponyta. Who's next? Who's next? Because surely it's going to be the Jolteons. You know, the team that are not even in playoffs positions in Miles. No, because of course it's not. No, it's not. It's the Lumineon. They're B15. And they are 7th in the Smiles Conference. Despite being positive in all metrics, they won their most recent game. They got positive mon difference. They got a positive record. Okay. So, they are performing well, considering their pre-season seed of 24. They have a chance of getting playoffs in their debut season, which, as we've already discussed, is a rarity. Inteleon, after a strong start, is still their kill leader, but has had less impact in recent weeks. And at 15.44, they are only just above the Ponyta. They've brought in Cleavor and Infernape. That's pretty scary, because they got rid of the shit Tauros and Volcarona. They had struggled to sweep with too consistently. They were placed as high as 11th by one person, 12th by others, and as low as 20th, but no one lower than 20th. That's interesting. Strong draft. Scorbunny, Ponyta, Litten, Gallade, Yanma, Bellossom, Inkays, and SuperRods. They certainly need 4 wins to be within any playoff shout. One would probably expect them to get 4 wins. Perhaps more. Be interesting. I can't see them being anywhere far away from the playoffs fight, though. I think there is a near certainty that they will be right around that boundary. And they are the team that you're going to need to beat to get in. And if you lose to, you probably ain't making it. Unless they happen to upset the Litten or Gallade, who are perhaps, along with the Bellossom, 3 opportunities for them to claw higher. We'll see. Because that's just assuming those 3 teams being the ones that we haven't yet seen on our rankings. So, who's P14? Who's P14? Because next, in the Smiles Conference, you'd expect a team in 6th, which is the Starmies. There's no way that they're above the Jolteons, right? As in, the Jolteons are above the Starmies. That couldn't possibly be the case. It has to be Atch, right? You know, I mean, there was a lot of people who were scared about the Jolteon's draft at the start of the season. They are not even in playoffs at the moment. So they are surely, I love actually the Jolteons. But it's not them. It's not them. 14th on the BRs is, I don't know, it is the Jolteons. They are here. And it's dead to seed as well. There's a lot of belief in this team. 5 and 4. Positive. In his 7th season now. He's been here so long. So long. No trades. They have an average of 14.64. Comfortably above the Lumineon, who are 2 positions higher than them in their conference. Albeit, in fairness, they have pretty much identical stats. In terms of win record and win streak. One difference, etc. There you go. Everyone had the Jolteons between 11th and 17th. Literally everyone. And consistency certainly pays well. And there are no crazy rankings slapping you all over the place. In terms of your average and pulling it left, right, and centre. What Tyler? The GOAT? Kilowattrel? What a mon. Putting in work. Some could argue that Atch was highly unlucky. There's always a lot of RNG in Atch battles. It just depends on which way it goes. I, of course, can remember a particular battle that they did lose this season, perhaps, to the Drapion. It was rather unfortunate, but it has been replayed at times. They are yet to play the Lunala, Noivern, Oshawott, Samurott, Bonsly, Bulu, Litwicks, and Dino. There is a world where they win 7 of those games. I'll put them at 12 and 5. There is a world where they win 3 of those games. Finish with 8 wins. I think they'll probably win 5 of them. We'll put them at 10 and 7. They should make playoffs with that record, but you just don't know. You had Sog 13th and Atch 16th. Yeah, just for the record, Sniper, there aren't many people whose power rankings are further from the average than yours. There's one person who is way off, but yours are also pretty far off. Not to say the average is good. Historically, it's always been okay, though. So yeah. The Jolteons are yet to top their debut league play all the way back in Season 4 with Tapu Koko and Mega Manectric. And all the electric spammer, mainly just Hawlucha, because everyone knows what that mon does to people, and just the degeneration of brain cells it causes. 3rd is their overall finish. They did get that in Season 6. They did get it. That's a fact. We don't need to talk about how, but they did. That's all that matters. And yeah, they were pretty much in an identical spot last season. But then they missed out on playoffs for just the 2nd time in 6 seasons. They are 4 and 2 when it comes to making playoffs. Will they miss it for a 3rd time? One wouldn't expect that. They've never missed playoffs twice in a row. So we'll see. For the Levi of the season? Nah. That's someone else. So who is 13? Yeah, it is. It's the Bonsly. The Buckingham Bonsly. But also 5 and 4. They have a 10 mon difference. They were 5 and 2 for the past couple weeks. They were seeded 4th coming into the season off of back-to-back top 4s. And their average is 12.16, a humongous jump of 2.5 on average from the Jersey Jolteons. He's in his 9th season. He's played in almost every single season, albeit most of them early Bonsly performances don't want to be remembered. They were as high as 6th, according to one person. 7th, according to multiple. And according to him, he's 36th. Thankfully, that didn't contribute to his average. 18th was the lowest that actually counted. Well, he's the 13th, so there you go. He's made a lot of changes. No more Iron Valiant, no more Zapdos or Flygon or Alolan Golem. He has brought in the Koko and Alolan Raichu combo, alongside liking what he saw out of Gallade. Frankly, Gallade, a lot better value for money than Iron Valiant, that's for sure. And Gliscor. So there you go. Schedule has been pretty average. Yet to play the Pachirisu, Snorlax, Boldore, Regirock, Jolteons, Hoopa, Turtwig, and Combees, which, weirdly, I think is completely a free-ish schedule. He should be winning absolute bare minimum 4 of those. But that's Miles Conference, so a lot of other people are going to be winning a lot of their games as well. So, interesting. Bonsly continued. He thinks he wins 8 of those. I think he wins 6. Bonsly continued the ever-improving arc, making their first playoffs in Season 8. Finishing 4th. All the way to the Grand Finals. How do they keep improving? The only way to improve is to win. So there you go. You think he wins 7 of those? I think he wins everything but against the Boldore and the Combees. That's what I think. And that's just going off my own PRs. But the Boldore must be above the Bonsly, because we haven't seen them yet. Are they number 12? It would be a very high ranking for the Boldore, but could they go even higher? No, it is the Boldore. They are number 12, and that's number Wang. Of course, doesn't fit anywhere near the box. A very strong season thus far it has been for the Boldore, who are 6 and 3, positive across the board, and have already had a difficult schedule. I think they're almost hard done by to be 12th, personally. But this is already, again, like I say, above the expected seed performance. They're 11.68, a little bit above the Bonsly on average. They have placed 7th by one person, 8th by others. Only 16th was the single lowest they received. They have traded out Tornadus T, though. And that I don't understand. But they've brought in Deoxys Speed, so I'm curious to see what that thing can do. It is terrifying, to be fair. No more Goodra. They have lost a lot of special bulk. No more Venomoth. They've brought in Skarmory, a very winning Mon in Smiles Go for Miles. And Sork, a Mon we know they are very capable of using strongly. They are yet to play the Ontario Oshawott, the Plymouth Pachirisu, the Buckingham Bonsly, the Nottingham Noivern, Leeds Litwicks, Scotland Samurott, Jens Dino, and Bradford Bulu. Now, no surprise, they'll probably be aiming to win 5 or 6 of those minimum. We see a 12-win season from the Boldore. Going to need to go their way. Certainly going to need to go their way, and I'm curious to see what this Deoxys Speed does, that's for sure. Thing is about the Boldore is that they're never ever winning 5 or 6 of those, because maybe with 5 they can still be in it, but the Boldore are always in the playoff race. I'm pretty sure they've only ever finished, barring like one season, at literally the boundary, either above or below it. Always that spot on the boundary, apart from like once. It's crazy. They are only have one top 8 finish. That is via playoffs in Season 7. And they've never gone positive by more than 1 win. So they went 9 and 8 last season and they made it, which is pretty fun, which means they kind of have to go 9 and 8 this season. But I can't see them going 3 and 5. I think surely, for the first time, they're going to go positive by more than 1 match. Surely. Right? Surely. Maybe not. So we go to 11. Who is missing out on the top 10? Well, raw standings would suggest it will be the Starmies. They're the only team left with just a 5-4 record, but they have a 15 mon difference. And statistically, not that many people would notice, they've had a very hard schedule up to this point. Do you think people have noticed that? Put any other teams below them? No. Of course they haven't. It's the Starmies at 11th. 5-4. Second hardest schedule in the Smiles Conference. Who are seeded 6th. Coming in. And they are one of the only 2 remaining all-time franchises alongside the Litwicks, who do not scratch your eyes. The Litwicks have not come up yet. The Litwicks are in the top 10. Incredibly, they have an asterisk of shame here. They have put themselves 4th. But I can say there are 2 people who had the Starmies 5th in their power rankings. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was me and Rye. Statistically speaking, across the last 2 seasons, I have had the best power rankings on average. That's all I care about in my life, really. But that's also because I get the data of all the schedules, so I get a lot more information to base off. So there you go. The lowest they received was 17th. There is a person who put the Starmie 17th. And you know what? Maybe they will. Maybe they'll be right. Maybe they miss playoffs. They're not far from the boundary. And some people had them 16th, 15th, 16th, 15th, 14th. All around there. But you just don't know. The Starmies have only started winning in the past couple years. And wouldn't be crazy to think they could go back to losing. Galarian Darmanitan is a huge threat, but the whole draft is full of threats, of course. And Raichu is there to come in for Haunter, as I will continue reading and not look at chat, as I've seen a message from Sniper, which is no doubt crying about how underranked they are, but that's fine. It happens every season. Rotterdam Rotoms, Arianas Altarias, Ludicolo, Blaziken, Appletuns, Entei, Yanma, and Aggron. Yeah, it is that. That is what I was expected. The experience, all-timer Starmies, best league play, if not last season, perhaps 8-3, where they came second in season 7. Where they also got top 4. Somehow. In an unusual way. Can they really get a top 4? Again. They have the history to. Most people would say they have the ability to. But they haven't. And last season they did great. They came 3rd in league play. But despite probably one of the sweatiest drafts we've ever seen, it wasn't enough. They lost. I don't believe they lost to the Scorbunny though. That's from season 8. Let me correct that. Last season, playoffs, they lost to the Blazikins. Of course. Unfortunate. They also beat Starmies. Perhaps I just didn't update this bottom section, which Sniper will then be very angry about. No, they were 12, and 5, and 3rd, or 24. Okay. So the Starmies miss out on the top 10 on average. Tough luck. And there's one team that has historically always been ranked right next to the Starmies. So of course it's going to be the Bellossom next. And of course they have to be just above them. Why not? 6-3, because they've got a slightly superior record, albeit 9 mon difference. Certainly an easier schedule up to this point. The Mega Diancie has got 13 kills on the board. Yes, that means that Phalius has not been ranked yet. I know. But an average of 9.68. It's also quite the gap. Somebody ranked them 3rd. albeit I should probably put an asterisk on it. You can probably figure out who it actually was, but it wasn't Bella. They were ranked 7th by many people. Many. But they also weren't ranked low by many people. That's the main difference, I think, between the Starmies and the Bellossom, is that some people, a number of people had the Starmies around 15th and 16th. That was not the case for the Bellossom at all. They have brought in Annihilate. No more Freeze, Dry, and Kyurem. I don't know how I feel about it. A load of muck. Jinx. Yanshao and BEM are out. So, I mean, in fairness, the Annihilate, I assume, can U-turn. They haven't brought it. Can Jinx teleport? I don't know. I think it would be a very good teleporter. They haven't really gained any more priority and pivoting spam. So I'm confused. But we'll see how it functions. They play the Blaziken's immediately out of the break in a huge battle. Before then, SuperRods, Altarias, Inkays, Mimes, Lumineon, Scorbunny, and Litten. Sort of schedule that is statistically very tough, but could certainly go either way. The Inkays may be a welcome break alongside the SuperRods you would expect. Will that be how it is in practice? So, indeed, I had to change almost nothing compared to last season. I believe last season at mid-season, Bella was 6-3, 8 mon difference, 1 win streak. It was pretty much identical. They have never got top 4. Only as a Latias did they get top 4 with a Mega Medicham, I remember. They got 2nd in the Mars Conference, though, when they went 7-3 a number of seasons ago. I can't remember what season that was. But last season's 11-6 was pretty good as well. Got them 4th. But then only allowed them to lose to the Gallade. And not winning in playoffs is something I can shake Bella's hand on. The league play is definitely quite bipolar. And therefore, it's very hard to tell what is going to happen in the second half of the season. That's kind of why people struggle to put them up in the very top spots. They have the potential to compete there. So we'll see. He was 11 on difference, 6-3. You still have the screenshots, Techo. It's actually so funny how many similarities there are for some teams. Actually, it's wild. Okay. So who is P9? Who is it? Not Yeti. Yeti is the GOAT. Is it Joe? No. It is the London, not Lodnan, Lunala, whose kill leader is a tier 5 Knackle Stack, of course. Not a mon known for killing either. Forming slightly above pre-season seed, one of the highest seeds a rookie has ever received, of course, at 11th. But they are in the top 10 comfortably at P9, above the Bellossom from 9.618 to 9.12 on average. Sword is bored, but have they been figured out? Most people tend to not think so. They're at 16 mon difference, 6-3, doing good time. Somebody had them 3rd. I actually can't remember who that was, but I do respect it. And the Lunala have proven a dangerous team immediately coming in. Some people having them around the low teens as well, not uncommon, but on average, they come out at number 9. No transfers needed. This is when you really get into the sort of territory where you think these teams might be able to compete for the title. Because anything happens in playoffs, right? Albeit we have yet to have the Littens or the Mimes, who historically this is way out of their depth. Just a fact. So congrats to them for not being on the list yet. But we know they must be on it somewhere. So there, it's play the Jolteons, the Drapion, the Turtwig, the Mimikyu, Combees, Snorlax, Hoopa, and Regirock. Tough mid-season between the Mimikyu and Combees. If they can grab one of them wins there, that is huge for keeping up with the race. Not just really for playoffs, albeit playoffs is the priority. They are just 6-3, but they are in 4th as it stands. And the battle will not just be to get playoffs, but to get a top 4 spot, perhaps even higher. So you know. Out of depth for the Littens. The Litwicks, sorry. Litwicks. And the Mimes. It's the double lit. I misspoke. Yeah, the Litwicks and the Mimes have never got a top 4 and frankly haven't really been close to it. So the fact that they're inside the top 8 is quite something. And it's interesting because neither of them are next. It is actually the Liverpool Litten who are next and not forgettable. 6 and 3 indeed. They got a healthy Mon difference helping them. They were seeded 5th coming in, so is this an underperformance? I'm not sure. Who knows? Last season was weird, but the Littens certainly seem to be contenders again once more. Which is nice to see. You will notice that they have the incredibly clean 7 average. Bam. Exactly 7. Only Thomas was able to pull off the integer average. And frankly, this is also quite a definitive top 8. The people seem to have voted, and they are like, this is going to be our top 8. Because the gap from is 7 to 9.12. In fact, the fact he's ranked exactly 7th, but then 8th on PR is pretty weird, actually. But it'll make sense. Ursaluna, of course, did get 11 kills, but it's being fucked off. So don't get used to seeing it for the Litten. Because they have brought back in the Wind Machine when in red. It's Skarmory, and they've also brought in the Sweatlord ground type of Draft League history. It's Mudsdale, as well as a Latios and a Houndoom. So this does look more dangerous, it has to be said. They might lack a bit of fire-type offense, as Houndoom doesn't feel great to bring, but the Cephalon, not an easy one to use. So, weirdly, probably nice trades. Somebody had the Littens 3rd, and that just means they believe they're going to get top 4, which I think most people would say top 4 is not out of the question, perhaps even more. And nobody, this is what really helped their ranking, nobody had the Litten lower than 11th. In fact, I'm pretty sure one of the people who put themselves 11th was Joe. And I might be misremembering. They're currently 4th in the conference. It's looking nice. It's looking nice. Play the Yanma, Rotoms, Lumineon, Ponyta, Inkays, which, if it goes to seed and current position, that's going to be 5 more wins on the bounce to go to 11 and 3. Then, the battle against the Gallade, SuperRods, Bellossom. You know, this is the sort of player and team that's going to put huge pressure on anyone trying to chase the top 4 in Smiles. So, there you go. So has the mighty Lumineon. I think the Lumineon have enough of a history to be considered mighty in any respect at the moment. Well, nobody had Joe 4th. 5th, plenty. And 3rd, one person. Bailey's and Yeti next to each other. And who else is it going to be? Who is remaining? The Dino, Mimikyu, Blazikins, Gombees. There's not many teams left. There ain't many in that left, but there's a lot of data to go over. Boop, 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 boop. Pay attention to this average, by the way. An average of 7 for the Liverpool Litten. Next, lucky 7. The Leeds Litwicks with 6.96 edge out P7. The team 3rd in the Miles Conference. The Litwicks, talk about altitude sickness for these. They've never been anywhere near here. And they're looking to put it right on back because they've traded away their strongest performing Mon in Tapu Koko and they've brought in Iron Valiant instead. They've got rid of Iron Hands, Iron Leaves, all of the cool synergies and the Skyscraper to bring in a Tinkaton and a Skeledirge? The crappy, like, PU Fire Crocodile starter, I think? It can't be PU, there's no way. And Rotom Frost. Rotom Frost is probably the best Mon that's been brought in there, though, so watch out for that. So, plenty of experience. These Litwicks and, of course, the stock market Starmies, the only franchises in all 10 seasons, down from 3 to 2 this time. With myself no longer here. With the Wailords, we have a lot of people. Despite the Leeds Litwicks being 7th, don't go crazy. Because a lot of people believe the Leeds Litwicks are a top 3 team. Someone put them 14th. They had plenty of around the 10 mark rankings, but this is a team that was seeded 27th coming into the season after some questionable performances at times in recent times. Lots of very questionable, quite garbage showings compared to what we have seen so far at the moment in Season 10. Perhaps their 10th season, Season 10. Of course it is, because they've been in there. I don't know. Maybe it's lining up. I don't know. They've had pretty average schedule, so yet to play the Noivern, Regirock, Pachirisu, Hoopa, Boldores, Combies, Jolteons, and Turtwig. It's got to be at least 4 wins in there, right? And if they get 4 wins, they're making playoffs. That's how it is. It is down to the Leeds Litwicks to throw their playoff spot away, because they've already got 7 wins on the board. They have a history of throwing playoff spots away. That's the problem. Yeah, last season they were 6 and 11. They were 14th in miles. So this is going a lot better. Some will be unhappy that the Leeds Litwicks are as low as 7. Some who know how the Litwicks play probably had them a bit lower. Oh, I think I did have them lower. Where did I put the Leeds Litwicks? Just so I can attract as much hate to myself as possible. I had them 11th. Yeah, I think that's fair. Still has them making top 12, which is top 12 is good. Top 12 is like a season you can't be unhappy with. Cringe, I have them 5th. Hey, I mean, we're all Litwicks fans, aren't we? But there's no star next to this logo. And they can't command respect until they've got one. Not that that worked out for the Dakar Drapion today. P6. It's the Dien's Dino. 5th in the Smiles Conference, but highly respected with a championship title. They are just 6 and 3, but they were the 3rd seed coming in. They have performed so well with Steeler Artois, the Celesteela, and at 6.88, they just edge out the Leeds Litwicks. Just. We go from 7 to 6.96 to 6.88. Yep. Multiple people having the Dien's Dino 3rd. Multiple people having the Dien's Dino 12th. They've made no changes to what is already a rather strong draft. They play the Samurott, Hoopa, Noivern, Combies, Pachirisu, Turtwig, Boldore, and Jolteons. I think it would be a surprise to see them win any less than 5 of those. Can they win them all? Can they win 6 of them? 7 of them? They were only 5th in league play, though, last season. They had a very impressive playoff run. Finished up in top 4 overall. You got to respect that as well. In their 3rd season now. It's always hard to top the entry in Season 8, where they lost just the 1 game in league play. Won the whole thing. So, we're being told that Smiles is garbage by Yeti, a Smiles player. And yet 5th in Smiles is able to get to 6th. And it is interesting that there seems to be, of course, slight spoilers, but such an anti-Smiles ranking across the board, which has always been the case in power rankings, which I obviously I don't understand, because statistically and overwhelmingly, if you take out 3 heavily hacks-filled battles in the first round of playoffs, Smiles has always actually overperformed. Dino is Miles. See, that's the thing. This is what my point was talking about. I didn't actually notice the typo, thank you. Is that the Dino are just 5th in Miles, but they're able to be 6th overall. Kind of wild. I mean, I think I had the Dient Dino 4th. I can see that. There's a lot of respect for Dino, and rightly so. But the whole conference of Miles, just so biased. And yet, they've managed to convince the Smiles conference that that's right as well. Last season, the conferences performed exactly the same in playoffs. And yet, the mid-season rankings were overwhelmingly Miles favoured. They were Miles favoured in Season 8 as well. And yet, yes, the Miles won all of Round 1 of playoffs. So technically won overall. But if you look at those battles, I think you'll see the probably correct results that might have happened. But they didn't, and that's the point. And RNG is always a part of Pokemon. So if we're going to write a speech and immediately announce we're quitting, then let's not go too deep into it. What is the top 5? Because the Morzaku Mimes have not appeared on this list yet. But they do now. They are number 5. Team 3rd in the Smiles Conference. Is it the Mandela effect? People just forgot about them until they got to the top of their ranking? Or is it the Mega Venusaur effect? Well, I don't know. Because weirdly, there's only one person who put them 3rd, and somehow, I'm going to be honest, it was me. I don't know, bro. The Mimes are performing strong. They are 7-2 with one of the easiest schedules remaining. Incredible. We go from 6.88 to 6.56. This is a hugely close grouping. And only one person had the Mimes outside their top 10. He has brought in a Zoroark and a Floatzel, which only really upgrades the draft when you realize that Jellicent and Wigglytuff had barely come to any battles. These are more problems to think about, and we know how problematic Zoroark can be in a draft environment. Plays the Inkays, the Appletuns, the SuperRods, the Ludicolos, the Bellossom, the Rotom, and the Gallade, then the Ponyta. That is just one team that is above them in the conference. So in fairness, they do stand to lose a lot. But the fact is they are backed to win 7 of those games and get 14 wins. Whether that actually happens is interesting. But they should be able to get a top 4 with just 6 of them wins. So that is why I had Yeti as number 3 for me. But do I think they're actually the 3rd strongest franchise? I don't know. Most people were pretty undecided on them. They were 18th seed coming in. And yet, here they are. What a season it has been thus far for Not Cringe, the Mega Venusaur. Indeed. Taking time off to worship Carl in Season 8 did the Mimes well. They bounced back. That's 10-7. Their franchise best. But again, they are yet to ever win in playoffs, I believe. They have made playoffs twice and been eliminated immediately twice. So don't put too much expectation on them should they get a strong bye position into playoffs. Who knows? They could fight for a top 2. They have absolutely the schedule and the key game required to fight for a top 2 in Smiles. But they are odds on to make top 4, which means that they have a potentially high placement awaiting in playoffs if they can actually learn how to win in playoffs. But that's not something I can help him with, as that is a secret known by few. And perhaps these are the few that do know. There are only 4 teams left, and surprisingly a team that has not really been talked about much until now is probably a very obvious pick for what's coming next. It would be a surprise to see them any higher. It is the Gallade and Subson, who had an electric start to the season with Subson, the Gallade, which is a weird sentence. They're also 7-2. Some would argue they should probably be 8-1, barring a rather interesting most recent game. But they came in a 7th seed. They are performing strongly and often have in league plays despite the tragedy of last season. They have also joined the elite club with Joe and, of course, Thomas as having the integer average of 5 exactly. But just like Joe, he finds himself off of that ranking. Joe was exactly 7 average, but 8th. Whereas Subson is exactly an average of 5, but 4th. So fair play for him pulling that one off. So there's a lot of people having the Gallade 3rd. One person had them 13th, but outside of that, literally everyone had the Gallade between 3rd and 8th. So no wonder their average ended up as exactly 5. It was incredibly consistent. They have got rid of the Mega Gardevoir. They've got rid of the Mega Scizor, sorry, and brought in Mega Gardevoir, not a mon that we've seen often in Draft League, actually. And they've brought in the Stantler, who is probably going to be more used than a Hakamo O. So, going to be interesting, in fact. Going to certainly be interesting. They play the Entei, Inkays, the Blaziken's, the Lumineons, Altarias, Litten, Mimes, and Scorbunny. And when you realise that race for potentially top 2 between the Gallade, Litten, and Mimes, you look at the schedules and you probably think, well, the Gallade are going to have a tough time keeping both the Mimes and the Litten behind them. Interesting. Very interesting. Yes, I think we write and talk about last season's playoffs incident that led them with having to make a very tough run, and they fell at the hands of the Mimikyu, probably a franchise that they'll never manage to beat again after the past couple meetings. But a top 8 finish is something that we have actually come to really expect from the Gallade since their inauguration, but this is the first time we are really expecting them to potentially push past that, although I believe they might have been number 4 as well last season. Perhaps 5th. Perhaps 3rd. I can't remember. Maybe Teco can let me know. Which leaves us with 3 teams. 3 franchises. And well, to be honest, 3 franchises that I think most people were expecting to be the top 3. Will they be in the order people expect? Well, number 3 is a team that has had the easiest schedule in their conference. Of course, the team at the top of the Miles Conference, the Cheshire Combies. Only one of 2 teams with an 8-1 record, and an 8-win streak, 25 mon difference. They are battling like demons. Yeah, only 7 kills on Galarian Darmanitan. Quite well spread killed, but what a roll of changes they have lined up. We jumped from an average of 5 from the Gallade to an average of 2.84 for the Cheshire Combies. Now, we talked about championship contending teams, but it seems like the consensus is that our winner will come from one of these 3 teams. Unfortunately, for those as confident, that's rarely how things work. Playoffs is a different time, and different things apply. Very satisfyingly, the Combies are forever ranked between 2 and 5. Not a single person having them at number 1. Perhaps that is why they ended up at 3rd. But understandably, they've made a wild load of changes. No more Sylveon, Shaman, Glamora, in fairness, hadn't done a ton. They are bringing in a Wo Chien. It's in the power of Glaceon with the Terra, a Salazzle, of course, and a Tornadus Therian. I would say these are quite some upgrades, in fact, just because of the power we've seen from Tornadus Therian, who is probably one of the most busted mons in draft, at least Gen 7 and before might be the strongest. I've argued for this thing to be banned. It's that so oppressive. But if you miss Hurricanes, then it looks more balanced. And so Salazzle, also a lot of prep required for that thing. 2.85. Let's check out this schedule, which is harder than any schedule. Of course, Harry and the Ponyta have the hardest schedule remaining in Smiles, but statistically, this one is stronger in terms of raw numbers. They play the Snorlax and the Bulu. They've also got the Oshawott in there. Don't be disturbed, that is just the Miles Conference. But they have the Mimikyu, Dino, Lunala, Litwicks, and Bonsly still to play. Well, based off position,
they should go unbeaten. Will they? No, probably not. Because that is a lot of tough battles. But perhaps they can. They have experience topping a conference before. They did it in Season 7. But that odd Season 8 certainly decreased the value. A huge dip on the value of Combee stocks. They got a very much more respectable 6th in Miles last season. If you ever struggle and have a real rough time in Smiles, just move over to Miles, get some therapy, find your mojo again, and immediately he's now at the top of the conference, of course. 5th to 8th is where he finished. Drop into the Starmies last season after a win over the Litten in playoffs. But people are not expecting, on the whole, Combees to top their conference. That, of course, is a right reserved for the Merseyside Mimikyu, who are our number 2 team, just ahead of the 2.84 at 2.4. And the difference was people believe in this team to win. There are multiple people having this team at number 1. They have just a 7-2 record, but a very healthy 22 mon difference. And this is the winningest team in Miles Go for Miles history, so is that a surprise? They got a pretty average schedule still ahead of them. Someone had them 6th, but no one else lower than 4th. They've brought in a Vileplume Dash Bun. I can't say I know what the heck that thing is. Hoopa as a tier 4 seems nuts. A Hitmonlee. Go-Go and Kangaskhan haven't really done anything. Galarian Weezing, though, could be a loss that gets felt, that's for sure. And no more Typhlosion. Not that that had come a ton either. Especially when you've got a Charizard Y. So, on the whole, probably for the better. But Galarian Weezing, no longer a thing to prep for. They play the Turtwig, Oshawott, Combees, Lunala, Hoopa, Drapion, Regirock, and Snorlax. And make no mistake, that matchup against the Combees is going to be one for the top of the conference, you would expect. But there are some sleeper teams ready to try and sneak up, whether that be the Lunala or the Dino. Certainly if there's more losses from the Combees. And if the Lunala were to beat the Mimikyu, things could go pretty wild. Last season, of course, they topped the Miles Conference, as you are all probably very aware, with a 47 mon difference. But that loss to the Blazekins in playoffs meant they could only settle with 3rd. Pretty average season for the Mimikyu, although a fantastic season for most people's standards. You have plenty of picks in terms of what league play target they want to set for themselves, but frankly, they're not going to be happy unless they go unbeaten now, as 2 losses is pretty much the maximum quota you usually see for the Mimikyus, and once they hit 3, they tend not to be happy. So that means, of course, unbelievably, that Captain Pudding, our reigning champion, our 1 seed coming in, is, well, our number 1 power ranking, which probably surprises almost nobody. No, it doesn't surprise anyone. With a tied highest 1.04 average ranking, it was nearly unanimous. It's tied with the Mimikyu in Season 8. But of course, the Mimikyu in Season 8 did not go on to win that season, as it only takes 1 loss in playoffs and you're out. They are looking to prep for that, as they have already brought in the Flareon to try and deal with the Mimikyu. They're confident they're going to get top 2. How interesting it would be if they suddenly complicate things and drop out of the top 2, though. That would be quite funny. Well, they do play the Bellossom, Scorbunny, Gallade, Starmies, Ponyta, Appletuns, Rotoms, and Ludicolo. I think most people would probably say only 3 of those, maybe 4, are losable. It's interesting. They got the star, the new logo, they're looking fresh, and of course they have the Goldengo, a mon that doesn't really let you play the game, and Vigil has 19 kills. Nobody had the Blazekins lower than 2nd. That is quite something. And they won last season with just 3 losses. And they've only had 1 so far this season. This could be the best Blazekins season of all time. It's on track for it, currently. They lose only once every 9 games. As long as the loss doesn't come too early in playoffs, then we're looking at a 15-2 and playoffs win. Where would a 15-2 and championship win rank in the best seasons of all time? That is the question. Well, it can't beat the Litten, who went fully unbeaten in Season 6, did Joe. But with the longer seasons, What if someone went 16-1 and then won? Would that be better than the Litten? I don't know. The unbeaten is unbeaten, you know? Interesting. That's a very interesting decision. If you talk about greatness, you've got the 21, 22 games unbeaten from the Litten across Season 6 and the end of 5 and start of 7. Of course, they won 2 championships in that time. So, I don't think anyone can ever top that. But then, if you're talking about a singular season, that's when the discussion becomes interesting. Isodo law. Yeah. Should we get into the numbers? Because if these power rankings were to be true, I have to say, on the whole, I'm quite disappointed. I think they're very mild and rather boring. I put in all the data in a hurry this morning, excited to get that dopamine hit of, wow, this is going to be really interesting. And frankly, I think it was a load of dog shit. And all of you, not all of you, but most of you have terrible opinions. But, that being said, wow, look at the conferences if literally nothing changes. So this is the Smiles conference at the moment. Try and spot the difference, because wow, that's what you guys say the Smiles conference is going to be. Seriously, where is the difference? There's literally no difference. There's no difference at all. You know this is wrong. That's basically not possible. It just doesn't happen. Like, there's no difference. You guys literally just look at the sheet and you're like, that team's 10th, so they can go 20th overall, or maybe 22nd, because I love Miles so much, and you've got like your Miles scarf behind you. Maybe I should do conference merch. It's literally just slapped in order. That's not going to be the case. Look at the schedules. The Gallade are going to drop. The Starmies are going to climb. The Ponyta are going to drop. The Rotoms are going to drop. The Yanma are going to rise. It will be an upset if that didn't happen. This, what you're predicting, that would be wild if this actually happened. So maybe you guys are crazy and this is really exciting. But no, but the fact it's the exact same is just dull as shit. But most people didn't do that. So respect to you all. It's just this is how it averaged out. I don't know why, but it did. It did. Just did. It takes a lot of time to calculate schedule difficulty. I didn't have the time to. So yeah, to be honest, it doesn't really matter because almost nobody's schedule is actually, almost nobody's rankings were actually like this. It's just this is how it's averaged out. But again, I remind you just how much things changed from last season. This is the ending of last season in Smiles at least, and these week 9. Yeah. Suddenly the Entei, the Appletuns went up 6 positions. The Torterras went out. The Jolteons just missed out. It was kind of weird. And the Mars conference, well, that was completely different. Completely different to what happened. I think only 5 of them teams actually ended up staying in playoffs or something. It was wild. Anyway. And yeah, in terms of the Mars conference though, it is more interesting in Mars because of course you guys agreed that the Combies aren't going to hold on to the top spot and the Dino are going to climb a couple and that the Jolteons are going to kick the Turtwig out of playoffs and that the Noivern are going to climb all of one spot along with the Drapion. So yeah. Yeah. You also believe that the Litwicks are going to hold on to top 4. So in terms of schedule number, that's like the average team that you played. So like the Mimikyu and the Litwicks having 9 is quite funny because they're tied. That means they have had the literal most average possible, pretty much, schedule. Because on average, they've played a team that is 9th. It's quite funny. And they both had that. But expect a lot more confluence. A lot of teams with easier schedules remaining near the bottom. Although that does mean that they're quite often tussling and playing each other, which means if they trip over each other, they won't go anywhere. But if one team can rise above and beat them all, you would tend to probably look at like the Noivern or Mojang or maybe Bulu. They're going to shoot right up the table. Okay, interesting. If these were to be correct, though, which is fair, then it would give us these playoffs. These would be the playoffs. Let me zoom out for you. That will be the playoff bracket according to our average power rankings. Who else would like the Mimikyu against the Blazerkins again? Although that happened in the grand final, of course. The Buckingham Bonsly would have to have quite the run in order to repeat that. Are there any nice looking branches? I don't know. Well, it all depends how people actually perform, and expectation it rarely becomes reality, which is more easily demonstrated when we talk about expectation. Well, you're talking about the seeding. Of course, the seeding committee had a tough time guessing what seeds people should be based off their past merit and experience, and based off how they're doing right now, it's quite clear to see who the over and under performers are. These are the power rankings of the teams in order. I shall just zoom in a tiny bit more to bring these up. Performance versus expectation. So obviously the Belfast Blazerkins were number 1 seed. They are currently power ranked number 1 though, so the good news for them is that they're not underperforming. And the Merseyside Mimikyu were ranked number 2, and they were the 2nd seed coming in. So, well, that's pretty cool. They are exactly where expected. Well, then you start to see teams that are perhaps punching above their weight limit. Not that that's a limit. The Combies are up at number 3, after being number 8 seed. Nothing crazy. Nothing crazy with the Gallade being up at 4, while the Mimes are up by 13. And, of course, the Litwick are up by 20. They were 27th seed at the start of the season. It's very hard to seed the Leeds Litwicks. You never know how much LSD they're going to be on when they're playing their games. That's not something that I think actually Mr. Fadius does, but he would probably explain some of the Litwicks plays. A little bit sad for the Starmies, but they will be looking to rectify that as well. The Bonsly down by 9. The Boldore pushing up some points. The Lumineon, they're a debut team to be fairness, so very difficult to place. The Tampa Turtwig up by 15. Do not sleep on this team. They were 32nd seed. They were expected to be bottom 2-3 in their conference. They're nowhere near that, and I can't imagine they go anywhere near that before the end of the season. The Noivern struggling a little. Of course, no one struggling more than the Dakar Drapion. The championship contending franchise in the past are going to have to make a rise back up the table, which, based on their schedule, seems possible, but we'll have to see. So, I did have a tab for Lorna ranking the logos, but she hasn't had time to do that, so I don't have that. I simply have the data. Lots of data where all of your rankings are. Woo! This is where I calculate your schedule and how difficult things are, etc. And this is where the magic happened. But the interesting thing is how teams rank and biases. You can see how biased myself and Cheerio were, of course. You can guess who is who. Because we are O, as in other. We're not Smiles or Miles. And then there is these. There were 12 Miles rankers. And there were 13 Smiles rankers. Overall, the Miles won out on the bias. You would expect an average rank to be 18.5 when you consider that it's 1 to 36. So people have Miles nearly half a place higher than Smiles, which is impressive. It is not quite as biased as it was last season, though. But of course, it is Miles in favour. In fact, Smiles ranked Miles as higher as well than Smiles. But they weren't as biased. Shock! They weren't as biased as the Smiles conference, who nearly went, they basically went for an entire ranking above. They on average had a Miles team, a literal full ranking above where they were last compared to their Smiles counterpart, which is more biased than they were last season, I believe. Overall, we're less biased, but that's because the smiles have become less biased than they were. I mean, it's weird to even think about. In terms of the rankings and who's the most extreme, well, here are the elite club of people who are pro smiles. It's Joe, the most pro smiles, as well as Super Dude, who on average had a smiles team 2/3 of a position above their miles counterpart, as you can see there in the top right. So I'm just trying to limit what you can see at a time. I was slightly pro smiles, as was Pudding, Flo, Sniper, and just Tim. Respect to Flo and Tim, the only Miles rankers who were actually pro smiles. And that's where things end pretty quickly. Because you've then got Levi, who is the most balanced of all predictions after being literally wild last season. Levi has the best chance of being the most accurate because, of course, to go as even as possible gives you the best percentage chance of being the most accurate, given that the conferences submit equal teams to the playoffs. Equal numbers of teams to the playoffs. You then have Azazel, slightly pro Miles. Slightly pro Miles was Bastions and Cheerio. And then you start to get teams and rankers who are very pro Miles, including Subson and Yeti, who are meant to be on Smiles. They are as biased for Miles as Joe was for Smiles. The most biased Smiles ranker. But as you can probably tell, there's a lot of rankers who aren't on this table yet. Because if we scroll further up, you get Luke and Rye, who are very pro Miles. You scroll further up, you get Frost, that's Talia, and Harry, who are at the 1.0 mark. Once you hit the 1.0 mark, it's statistically kind of crazy. 1.0 is like, you don't care about being accurate, you just believe that Miles is so much better once you hit 1.0. And yet there are people above 1.0. They have gone past that point. Flupkey and Maddie also at 1.0. Casper and Master Baguette at 1.1. But we can go higher. Because Phalius hits 2. 2. Above Finchy, Icerdo, Crimson, and Sark, who's walked in alongside Casper as an innocent debut season, and they have immediately been brainwashed and radicalized by the Miles Conference. There's no saving Crimson. She never made sense anyway. There's still another person. Phalius isn't the most biased. It's Vex. In a league of his own. He, on average, put Miles teams nearly 3 places above their counterpart. And don't forget this. He put himself 36th. Had he have put himself at a normal ranking, he would be at nearly 4. His rankings were the most dogshit thing I've ever seen. They made Subson and Levi's rankings from last season look completely sane. And I don't know how that's possible. I thought about taking them away from the average, but to be honest, I just accepted that he had reserved almost half of everyone's extreme rankings. When I'm subtracting them from averages, I was pretty much just taking away Vex's ranking every time. At least for all the Smiles teams. As he just wasn't contributing to the average, basically. It's kind of wild. Yeah, something's for sure. And that's that unless Miles basically wipe playoffs, Vex is not going to be the most accurate ranker. That's for sure. But he's confident. And you know what? His takes are interesting. Some of them I don't disagree with. A lot of them I do. He didn't quite do that, Sniper. He didn't. It's actually easier than you'd think to rack up a bias of this amount. But it's difficult to justify. The biggest difference you can have is, I would think 9. maybe you can do higher. I mean, in theory, it should be 18, right? But that really would be sorting by. 9 is realistically the most like you could even remotely go for when you consider that no matter what, there are going to be 8 Smiles teams in the top 16 because 8 of them go to playoffs. So like you can't really go for more than 9. But like it's complete meme territory. Are we doing a marble stream? I don't think so. I gotta beat Tay and Lisa in Emerald Kaiser. I could do that now. I'm ready to go, but I might as well do it tomorrow. Yeah. No. How bad were my rankings? I'm just curious whether I show them. You can see my rankings. Of course, now that we've done the stream, you are free to post your own rankings, but I'm not going to out anyone. So, I was one of the 2 people that did not have the Blazerkins at number 1. That's because I just like the Mimikyu's matchup against them, and I don't think the Blazerkins would win. So, even though the Blazerkins may be better against most opposition, I don't think they're going to win the season. Besides, they can't go from coming second twice in a row to them winning back-to-back seasons. Winning back-to-back seasons is crazy. You know? That doesn't happen. You know? It just don't. And also, you can tell Pudding's sweating about the matchup because he's already traded in Flareon, which is an incredibly pussy move. So there you go. So yeah, I had the Mimes in third. I just believe in their schedule, and I just need them to get one. I just need them to get top 2 that I'm believing on them to get, and then just get 1 win in playoffs, and then I'm basically right. I had the Dino 4th because they're kind of Chad. Comby's 5th because they got a tough schedule, and I don't know if they're going to have the ice in playoffs. But however, I did this when I didn't see they'd traded in Tornadus Therian. Maybe they would go back higher. The Starmies in 6th, the Litten in 7th. I could easily see Joe making top 4, to be honest, but he's definitely at least getting top 8. The Gallade, I think, are getting top 8 because I don't think they're going to get... well, they're definitely not getting top 2. The question is, do they get top 4? They got a rough schedule. And I don't know. Like, I think Subson's allergic to getting top 4. Top 4 is such a boundary for so many teams, be it like Gallade, Starmies, modern day Combies, Bellossom. Like, top 4 is such a boundary. Even for the Wailords myself, I don't think I've made top 4 in like 4 seasons. For multiple reasons, of course. But like, it's interesting when you watch playoff battles are completely different. Lunalas 9th. I could easily, they can make top 8. I don't know, I just feel like my predictions have historically been very good, so you should be expecting this to be the case, guys. Just how it is. Vex could make top 8. Yeah, I think having Vex outside the top 12 is probably a bad take on my part. But that's mainly because I didn't want to catch the fire for having Thalius lower. But realistically, I kind of have Vex inside the top 12 and Thalius outside of it. And then Ariana, who has just had too weak of a first half of the season, but I actually have the Altarias almost highest out of so many people. And I can't believe it. I felt kind of bad putting them 14th. I think they could be a top 12 team. I don't know. But I don't know. They had such a slow start. Harry, I honestly thought I was going to put lower than 15th. I was like, this schedule is looking rough statistically. And then I looked at it and I was like, it isn't that rough. It'll probably be okay. And his draft is solid. So making playoffs seems safe. And I have Atch just making playoffs as well, even though I kind of like the Tampa Turtwig to beat them to the final spot. This is a really interesting battle, I feel like. They have very similar schedules remaining. They play so many of the same teams. Look at the teams that they play. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Oh, I can't even scroll across to the right balls. Maybe I can if I do this. Look at this. Here we go. Look at how similar these schedules are. These right here. There's so many of the same teams. The main issue for the Tampa Turtwig is that they've not played the Mimikyu, whereas the Jolteons have. That's literally like kind of difference maker. Yeah, Lumineon, they were first for the first 3 weeks, but I don't know. It's just like mid-season, mid now, and you are going to define mid. Run from it or hide from it. You're going to be on that playoff line. You're going to be one step above it or in the 2 below it, and there's no other way. It's any other difference. You're going to be just in the playoffs or just outside. There's no other way. I don't see it. It's just, can you beat the Ponyta / Altaria, really? You play any of them? No, you don't. You play the Ponyta. Oh, there you go. It kind of comes down to Ponyta, Lumineon, huh? But then the Scorbunny are kind of there. Like, I'm a bit of a Scorbunny believer. I believe in all these teams. The only 3 and 6 team I'm a believer in is the Yanma, because of how free their schedule is. Unreal levels of Yanma reverse sweep possible. I would usually be a Regirock believer. They got rid of Iron Moth, and I like Iron Moth, and like they just keep letting people set hazards up for free. And even though Finchie's shown he's a great player, he keeps missing out on the playoff race and not getting that close. And 3-6 start of the season just screams that he's doing that again. And everyone else, I don't know what's happening. It's just not their season, particularly like Entei and Appletuns. It's like they're both taking a holiday this season, and that's completely fine. I respect it. And I'm not a Bulu hater. I just... it's just Tim's great. He can beat anyone and lose to anyone. And like... a bit like the Litwicks. I don't want to get over hopeful they're going to do great. There you are. Playing Wake again. I mean, Wake isn't that good. Does he have Sun? I actually don't know. What does he have? What is the Yanma's team now? I don't get it. I mean, statistically it looks great for you, Sniper. But the reality is you're still, like, happy to randomly lose games. And that's why you're not a reliable top 4 team. Championship contending. You're always like 5th, 6th at best. And it's got to change. It's got to change. You know, you say all these stats, but you never back them up. You're always close to backing them up. Then you don't. It's sad. Because then people just make fun of you because you're overconfident. Which is a shame, because usually you just be confident. And that's good, but it ain't happening. Why does... Right, always put the wrong Yanma logo in. Bruh. Pick the one with the outlines on the Yanma. Boom. Better. You finished 3rd in your div. Yeah. That's like 6th. Exactly. I predicted you the same. I predicted you to do the same. Yeah, you had no idea they changed the logo. And I keep changing it every single season. There's a little outline around the Yanma now. It makes it better. I don't know what the heck this is, to be honest. I probably don't back the Yanma to come back. This is some jank-ass wank. That's what it is. It's great, though. That's what Season 9 is all about. Season 9, Gen 9. Yeah. I don't know. Not 11th? I don't have you 11th, do I? Who cares if someone does? You remember, like, Season 9? Where Joe was like ranked from anywhere from like 5th to like 25th. Unironically, not like Maddie's range where he got put 33rd or something, or 35th by Gaspy. In Season 8, I would come 2nd in Smiles, but I was ranked between like 2nd and 14th. Like, that's how it is. What do you mean, how can I not back you to be consistent? I literally have you coming 3rd in the conference. What the fuck are you crying about? Shut up. I literally have you coming 3rd in Smiles. Girl, you're crazy. Look, can you read? I'm just telling you, you're going to make top 8 and then lose 5th to 8th. You're a great team. You just need to become a team that makes top 4 more often to get more respect that you think you deserve. And you probably do deserve it. But people don't respect you until you win. You know? That's why I don't get respect. Because I always win in league play and then get frozen for 13 turns in playoffs. Or click T-Wave when terrain is up. It's shit like that that matters. No one cares about league play. That's just what happens. You finish like 5th in your conference? No, I meant like 5th. I meant 5th, 6th in like power rankings. Always where you end up. Like 5th, 6th overall. 5th, 6th seed. Like, it just happens. It just happens. The reality is that only looks like there's 3 championship contending teams this season. You know? It's the Mimikyu, it's the Blazerkins, and then the Dino and the Combees make up half a team each. And then it's like the Litten. Any of the teams outside those wins this season, it's a crazy story, and it's great. You know? Maybe the Bonsly have a run potential, but they're probably not going to get into the top 4 in that conference, so it's kind of rough. You know? Pudding's winning every single game he has us this season. Yeah, it doesn't really matter if he does. He's going to get top 2, even if he drops 1 or 2 games. It doesn't matter. Frankly, he should save as many strats as possible. And if he goes 2 losses or 3 losses, it's fine. He can't chase an unbeaten season anymore. So, you just win in playoffs. You know? He's going to go unbeaten in playoffs? Nah. I think he'll lose 1 game. I don't think he beats Bellossom, Gallade, Starmies, and Ponyta. Those are 4 tough games. I think he drops 1 of them. And then, like, the Blazerkins probably have the highest chance of winning playoffs, right? But I only give them, like, a 40% chance to win. That's not likely. It's like 40% chance Blazerkins, 30% chance Mimikyu. Possibly higher. Maybe it's like 45, 35, and then just like 10, 5, 5. You know? Everyone else is like, if we run this 100 times, they probably win like once. It's wild. Movie idea. Boy gets a puppy, they are bonded, they do everything together. Then his mum dies, which makes him sad. Then they get a stepmother that wants to get rid of the dog. The dad dies, and the stepmother wants to kill the dog, but the dog runs away, and here's the twist. The boy's parents weren't dead, it was the dog all along, and the kid was in denial. I will be live with Emerald Kaizo tomorrow. I will immediately open the stream at 1 PM BST with Tate and Lisa. Don't be slow. I know, because I see the viewership graphs, that most of you don't show up until I've been live for like an hour. And you know what? Unless you've got something to talk about, that's completely fair, because usually I'm doing like 2 or 3 fucking annoying battles that require way too much prep. But I am ready to go into Tate and Lisa. Be here at 1 PM tomorrow, or be square. Be here or be square is now the same, because it's immediately taking Lisa. Also, thank you for the follow, Hannah. So, I will enjoy whatever discussion there is on Discord. I hope you've enjoyed the magnificent mid-season Chaos stream, and I very much look forward to the second half of the season and watching and drinking in all of the fantastic content and drama. Is it Mimes season? Mimes for top 4? Is it Litwicks season? Is it Turtwig season? These are the timelines I want to answer. We will find out. And we will find out whether Attempt 40 beats Tate and Liza tomorrow. Please do be there, because I'm shitting myself and I need that battle to go well. We are in the business end. And hatches. We get 3 critical hatches hopefully tomorrow. Probably 2, at least 2, maybe 3. They're quite important. So, exclamation point Discord is there. For those of you who are here or new, I'm at the end of a Discord message if you need me or have any questions, yada yada. thank you all for being here. It's great fun. And next Sunday is when Draft League will be back. Hopefully, next Sunday is the 25th. Yes. However, I will not be about the Sunday after. That will have to be a probably Tuesday stream. As in Tuesday the 4th. Maybe Monday the 3rd. Depends on some things. You'll find out soon. Okay. See you then. And see you tomorrow.